he was a successful athlete, the All-Africa Games champion, calling himself the Tank.
We call him Clark Kent.
I didn't want to become an auditor, even though I got really good marks for auditing.
It's a little dead, if we're honest. I'm willing to say it on camera. Right. No need to budget when you're a private banker. We don't earn enough, was the point there, boys. Not we earn too much.
If you don't put the work in, you're not going to perform, right? And the only person you're lying to is yourself. It was pretty brutal. You got to be able to deal with putting a lot of work into something and someone saying, no, do it this way. You got to have everything in control. Your personal skills, your EQ, not just being in a room and talking to guys, having intent, listening to every word they're saying, and being on the ball every time.
And this light here is actually just Josh's smile.
Yeah. The turkey teeth all over. Next emerging trend in family offices.
You've got to have the right mindset, and you've got to get your kids to get to the point where, so what if you have everything set up for you? That actually means you need to work harder for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the official CF Div Sweeps podcast with me, your host, Rory Mason. Now, to my left, I don't know where to begin, but we have a long-time friend of the pod, Russell Tucker. The man's background is pretty impressive. As IB in South Africa, he was doing his GCMA at the same time. He then moved on to an MBA at HBS. He's a GFO of a £100 million multifamily office. And if that doesn't make sense, then don't worry, because he's here to break it down for you. Before all that, he was a successful athlete, the All-Africa Games champion, calling himself the Tank before retiring in 2016. And to my right, we have Ken. Ken, how's it going?
Doing all right, thanks.
Good.
We traded one South African for another today.
And Russell, how are you?
Oh, fantastic, man. Thanks for the introduction there.
HBS,
yeah. Carry on.
Do you think we should ever explain the HBS joke?
Never.
No.
When
I think it's brilliant.
We'll get Hector on, and then we'll walk through it.
Hector will explain it.
He's another Ivy League alumni.
Yeah,
Hector.
yeah, 100%.
Well, I mean, where do we start, boys? Should we start with the sport?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take it way back. So I was, always dreamed of being a sportsman from a very young age. And, I don't know if you ever had that feeling, but you're always born to do something, right? So I always felt like I wanted to be a pro sportsman. I was going to do rugby, cricket. I had something, there was always something I felt like I was going to do, something big. And then later on in my high school career, my aunt kind of said to me, hey, by the way, you're number 11 in the country. You should probably take this up. So I thought, hey, I didn't know that. That's cool. Let's look at the options. So after that, I finished high school, got a scholarship to University of Pretoria. I was studying sports science, something to keep me busy. Trained with an old coach called Doop, a real legend.
Called what?
Doop. It's like Uncle Doop.
Uncle Doop.
Yeah, Doop Dupree was his name. Yeah, well, he's still around.
Doop
Dupree, yeah. So, I went to University of Pretoria, studied sports science, training. I won my first international medal at 21. And then, one thing led to another, got onto European circuit. And then really when I was really peaking, that's when I kind of got injured. So just before my Olympic year, I was just off my qualifying. But I ended on a high, winning All Africa Championship, Africa Games gold medal. So it was a good thing. Good thing I didn't waste too much time in it. But learned a lot, which maybe we'll get into a little bit later. But a lot of skills you learn as an athlete, you bring into the game. When it comes to business, it takes you a long way.
What kind of skills are you talking about?
Well, I mean, we're talking about perseverance, understanding who you are, how far you can push yourself, really knowing where your limits are, and even pushing past limits. How do you learn how to deal with stress so that you can still fight and continue when things are really intense? I mean, recently, just from January this year has been really busy, like really intense. And, I don't think if I didn't have the skills that I developed and the perseverance to kind of carry on, I don't think I'd be able to operate at the same level that I do. And I know a lot of businessmen that I've spoken to, most of them have a sports background. Well, not most, but most of the ones that I've seen too. We seem to gravitate towards each other.
A lot of successful people seem to come from a sports background, and it seems to be that certain firms will really like weight towards hiring a sports background. Maybe it's a culture thing. Maybe it's I don't know, like you say, a sort of soft skill thing. But I've certainly seen a trend within like high stress jobs, maybe trading, whatever. But like a lot of people can come from a sports background.
I think it's just understanding yourself in a different setting, and then you can kind of overcome the things that you need to. Like when you're really pushing yourself to the limits that you have to be a top performing athlete, you got to break yourself down to build yourself back up. You got to go through that, and I think that helps you when you get into the business world, because there's nothing like having 300 kilograms on your back. Feels like the world's coming down on you, but you need to get back up. And I mean that like, physically, when you're squatting 300 kilograms, it's quite difficult. And you can bring it into the business world by just having that, let's say, intensity with your mind. You can, you got to take it to a limit, because at some point it becomes less about the physicality of it and more about the mental game to get to that extra bit, because everybody can get to 200, 250 kilogram squat, but to get up there, you really got to really feel, your limits and know how to break it. So, I mean, that's pretty much how I put it down.
And if you're not athletic, can you get that experience elsewhere?
I mean, I wouldn't know how to answer that. I'm sure, because obviously there's a lot of businessmen who's successful. You don't have to be an athlete, but
I think it's always been like, for at least since athletes I spoke to, it's been like a discipline thing. I mean, I'm not sure if you agree with that, but discipline comes, like, sports is probably one place, or the military, where you're really just coming down on discipline. It's like, you need to do this. There's no question about it. Either you get it or you don't, right? And the ones that do pass through, they kind of ingrain that in themselves.
There's nothing like discipline and hard work with a result that's so tangible, because if you don't put the work in, you're not going to perform, right? And the only person you're lying to is yourself. So it comes down to it, like, if you go to work every day and you know that you're grinding hard, but you're doing it right, so you're not just working hard, you're working smart. It's the same thing as sport, right? If you're not getting your sleep, getting your training, getting your physio, doing your stretching, and training your technique, and you're getting everything right, as well as having the right mental game, that's how you become, a champion. So it's the same thing in business. You got to champion you got to go the whole 9 yards, Excuse the sports pun there, but basically you got to have everything in control. So whether it's, for IB, it's technical, your personal skills, your EQ, listening intent, not just being in a room and talking to guys, having intent, listening to every word they're saying, and being on the ball every time. I know we were having a discussion earlier about, listening to what people are saying and what are they telling you through those words as well. If you're just there, you're only half there. You need to be there with everything so that you can kind of get your goal, whatever the goal might be.
On a side note, sorry, it's interesting you said military, because that's where my mind went to be the other place you can get it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously IB, I think, is, as an analyst, is a bit of a grind. Like, they will sort of instill that discipline upon you. But I'm trying to think of, like you say, other places, and sports seems to be the most common one, and I suppose that's probably because you can get that ingrained into you from a very young age. Yeah. Obviously, if you're trying to join the military and then go into investment banking, sort of by default, you're going to be, 18 when you join the military. You're going to be older, whereas if you can learn these lessons, like you say, about yourself at a very young age, then I suppose you can just get ahead of the crowd, which you can't do if you're learning them other ways.
One of the guys I did my MBA with was from the military background. And I mean, there's a handful of guys that I would have worked with, because obviously you get to know everybody. And I always say to everyone who goes to the MBA, who's the 5 guys that you would hire if you were given the opportunity, right? One of them was from a military background, hardworking, really smart, and has all the sort of skills, right? Both intangible and tangible and technical, and the EQ. It's that's a different game. I think that's something that you can learn, but in terms of harnessing and applying EQ is a different kind of, that takes a lot of experience and time to do. But yeah, definitely has all the, not all, but most of, and some other, skills that you'd gain in the military versus sport. There's a little bit, there's obviously differences, but yeah.
That's a good point. Should we take it back to the beginning? Because I purposely gave you a very sort of acronym-filled introduction.
After sports science, I mean, while I was doing it, we had a couple of accounting modules, and I was getting 100%, even in high school, I got 100% for some of my exams in accounting because I'm really good with numbers, right? So it's just a thing. So I decided after I finished my sports science degree, I needed to do something that was, in my eyes, more challenging and more aligned to what I wanted to, eventually get into. So I went to Monash University, which is a Australian university. I did my undergraduate in accounting, towards the end of that, I didn't want to become an auditor, even though I got really good marks for auditing. I just decided it wasn't the path I was going to follow, right? Because I really gained hey?
It's a little dead, if we're honest.
It bored me a little bit. I mean, it's a good stable, but not for me. So yeah, I changed a couple of electives, and I went down the management accounting route. So, I mean, whilst doing my undergraduate, I really gained that love for corporate finance, and it just, happens to be so that my family, owned our own IB firm. My dad's a long-time investment banker, and I've been around that since from a very young age, and listening to the things that they were going on about different deals, and just being around it, I think subconsciously groomed you into that kind of space, because there was no sort of push from my dad to get into corporate finance and kind of join the firm. It was more, if you want to do it, you can come, but if you don't, well, you can go do what you want to do. So, it's pretty interesting that I ended up doing what I do, because it just seems to be in the blood.
Was he like that with sport, or was he more pushy with sport when you were a younger child?
Yeah, he's definitely supportive of the sport, because obviously from a young age, I'm a big guy, I'm just naturally talented when it comes to sports. So I think in terms of...
Sorry, just earlier being like, squat 300 kilos, and now being like, I'm a big guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was always big from a young age. So I think in terms of your biological...
3 scoops a day from the age of 7.
Just we call him Clark Kent.
But yeah, on a serious note, I think he was always supportive of what I wanted to do, which was cool. So there was no real pressure to do anything. The funniest comment was when I said I want to go do accounting after I finished sports science. He was like, "Why?" He said to me, "Why the hell would you want to do that?" And I think at that stage, I didn't quite get what he was, So I wouldn't say upset about, but so against. But at that point, I just decided, as I do, I just pretty much do what I want to do, and I just got it done. So yeah, I mean, after graduating, injured at that time, and then I needed to pivot. So I basically just went to my dad and I said, "Listen, I got a huge passion for corporate finance. This is what I want to do."
The posters of what's his name from Happy Gilmore on the wall.
You've mentioned this before. I don't know this film, man.
You've still not seen Happy Gilmore?
You haven't seen Happy Gilmore?
Still not.
It's brilliant. You got to watch it, dude.
Josh asked me about that, and I was just not Pistorius, Evans. He was like, "Oh, you never seen Happy Gilmore?" I'm like, "No, man.
That's criminal."
It even got to South Africa. Happy Gilmore,
dude. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It's like one of my favorite films as a child.
I've got if we're confessing, and I can't even remember the name of the film, the one with Patrick Bateman, American Psycho.
You've never seen American Psycho?
Never seen it?
Claimed to be a finance bro, never seen it. I dressed up as in for Halloween once, which is
but you never seen
finance.
The
no, I've not seen the film.
That is criminal.
Yeah, it's so overdone. Actually.
Do you want to talk about mental? We'll do it like the mental, breaking that mental barrier.
He can do it. Yeah, you just got to get your mind into it.
Telekinesis. Good one.
Wow.
So back to yeah. So after that I needed to pivot. So I went to my dad. He says, well, why don't you sit down with my partner and have an interview with him? And I basically just kind of give him the lowdown of what I had been doing, because I had some other ideas and ventures that we were working on whilst doing everything I was doing, and then just kind of, I think, displaying the passion for the industry that that I had. He just said to me, well, why don't you just come join the firm and let's teach you everything there is to know about it, and you'll work with the best there is. So I said, all right, when do I start?
Yeah.
So I went in there, like I wouldn't say, just ready to learn from, top to bottom, do what I got to do to make it happen, and really understand. Because when you do your undergraduate, you're just focusing on DCFs and like basic corporate finance stuff. You're doing all the your financial strategy, but when it comes to the full cycle of the M&A stuff, there's a lot more to it. And no, I don't think any degree is going to give you all of it. You have to work through it to get the whole life cycle. Because again, with investment banking, it's such a big area, and M&A particularly is a very complex area. So, it was just really good to get that experience. And then whilst doing that, I still wanted to get my CGMA. It was just something I wanted to do. So I did night classes during the week. After work, I would drive down the road, go to a training center, sit in classes at night. Weekends, I'd go to gym in the morning and then work out. Yeah. So I used to wake up at 4 o'clock or sometimes 3:45, so I can get to the gym at about 4:15.
What time would you go to sleep if you're waking up at 4 a.m.?
11. Yeah. I'm kind of the guy, I don't need to sleep that much. My wife many times would say, basically, you need to go work, stop playing PlayStation. Because sometimes I'd just be like, I just need a break. I'd play a little bit and then she'd be like, okay, you've had enough. You should go get some stuff done. So, I credit a lot of it to her pushing me through that it was pretty brutal.
Yep.
But yeah, glad I did it because it's done now. And the things that I learned made me a much better investment banker, because, it's good to be, like you say, you're not the model guy, although my modeling skills are great, but we had Gudani, who's just, on another level. And then, we had Andrew Watcham, who was, also just really, the two of them were our modeling guys. Really great to learn from because our models were really good. And in terms of having a model that's extremely well thought through and having all the details for everything so that you can map out the entire project and making sure that you're making the right decisions. And I think that speaks because of the success we had in our deals. A lot of it comes down to making the right decision, because mining is a very technical game. So if you got the right skill sets in your team and you're doing the models right in terms of the negotiations and all the stuff you do afterwards, you got the right numbers to go with from the get-go, So it makes it a lot more solid.
I have a question, but I will save that till we get later in. But I loved how you were mentioning these names, like they were retired jerseys or something.
Yeah. MVPs. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Watcham's London-based, Matthew Nell's London-based, my brother's London-based, Gudani's still South Africa, Rob's South Africa, Brady, South Africa. My dad's still South Africa. And then Brad Hunter is around.
Yeah. Is he interning somewhere?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Yeah, listen, you need a good team, right? Anything you do, you need a good team. Again, same thing. If I said to guys, who would I hire from my MBA? I was already planning for that going forward, because I need to know when I hire, who am I going to talk to?
Break down that. So it's in your MBA. It's you went in with the mindset of like, which 5 do I want to like?
No, I didn't go in with the mindset, but whilst I was there, you need to develop relationships, right?
Yeah.
And you need to build your network. But on top of that, you need to say, because obviously coming out your MBA, you always get put into the roles that are, building you're going to scale up, you're going into fixing a problem, you're going into, maybe you take an executive role where you need to fix something, right? Because generally companies that are working well, they have a succession plan. They have people that are there. You're not going to get those roles. So you most of the time going to be given something that you need people that you can trust, and you need to make changes quickly. Because most of the time you've got 100 days. If you don't make you don't make changes in the first 2 weeks, people are just not going to respect you. So
same thing with the U.S. presidency. Nothing done in the first 100 days.
Yeah. It's the private equity thing, man. You got to make a change.
Sports. I think it was Leo said the same thing when he went to Charlton. 100 days, 100-day plan.
Yeah, that's your general PE thing. But even still, when it comes to like changing management in the company and getting transformation done, you've got like 2 weeks to a month. If you don't make changes by then, the people that were there are not going to respect you. They're not going to listen to you. So this is what research shows.
I think it's interesting that you say you developed this, mindset, I should say, like, who are the 5 people I would hire, right? And I guess you say you didn't go in there with that, but how did you guys come to that idea?
Well, during the MBA, I think the whole benefit of it was, I describe it as getting 40 years of experience in a short period of time, because it's a lot of the stuff, and it's not everybody. Let's just get this right. Not everybody's going to appreciate the stuff, right? The smaller things that you take away from every conversation. Every time you do these business simulations and these challenges and putting yourself out there to grow as a person, right? That's the whole point of an MBA. Some people will just rock up and just do it because they want to get an MBA, but that's not the point of it. So learning those skills, I think at some point I realized, okay, if I'm being told the research is X, right? And these are the companies and case studies that this is what's happened, taking you through the CEO's journey, those who failed and those who didn't, right? A lot of them failed because they didn't make it, they didn't action enough, right? And then I have my wife's grandfather, same thing, right? Poached from South Africa to German pharmaceutical, MD, fired the entire board. Like literally the company was going under. Management. Came in, fired the entire board because why? You hadn't have the right team. And if you want to get something done, you got to have the right team. And it's not easy to get the right team. So yeah, it was just something I took away, and I thought, these are the 5 guys.
Out of interest, because I've not done an MBA, how quickly into it can you assess who's like there as part of like a longer term plan and who's there for like a career break, bit of fun, see what comes of it?
I think it takes a little while to get that because everybody comes in with some energy.
Yeah.
Right. And the MBA is not a difficult course if you're coming from a technical background. So just to caveat that, right? It's not a difficult course. It's got a lot of work, right? And you are slammed with work constantly. If you're going to keep up with the course load because you really want to immerse yourself in it, because otherwise, why are you doing it? I mean, like you'll 6 months in, you'll see who's not in it and who is in it, and then of the people that are in it, right? You got to cut that down as well. Who's in it and who's still good? Because I want someone who can be next to me. 12 months we are grinding really hard every day, and it's unrelenting, but I know that the guy's still going to pitch up and he's going to be there attentive and he's still going to do it right. Those are the guys that you want. And it takes a while to kind of sift through that because a lot of people have energy and have the right mentality, but really when it comes down to breaking it down and yourself, when you're really tired, how do you act when it's really difficult?
Okay.
And that's what MBA does.
I think this is a good chance to segue onto your current role, because I suppose you're facing more operational challenges than you would in the investment bank, where there's a very rigid progression structure, or you have a boss or whatever. So I think it'd be interesting to move on to I don't know how much you can say, but your role at the family office.
So where we were, where I was positioned in IB was, M&A, buy and sell side, right? We used to have clients, and we were either on either side of the table. Post acquisition, I wasn't involved in because the companies that we're advising, they've got teams for this stuff because we very acquisitive, and we're buying companies because, again, in mining, if you whatever the play was, you need a team to do this, because it's not just, you're not just buying a company with 20 guys, you're buying a company with 20,000 people in it, right? And different operational systems, different people, different units, although the mines may be close together and they share a border, but underground there's maybe just a wall that you're not going to open up, but now you got to get everybody working together. So the whole payroll changing, the whole accounting systems, the chart of accounts, we're talking about like granular detail, right? Synergies. Realizing synergy is a huge risk. So we can have the best financial model, but if you don't have a good PMI or post-acquisition team, how much of that synergy you're going to actually kind of get, and how much of a premium you're going to pay, and kind of bringing that together is going to determine how successful the deal was after a couple of years, once you've really integrated everything and achieved those things that we put down in the model, right?
Can you break down the role of a post-acquisition team, just for the people that haven't got your background?
I'm basically about to get into it because I mean I'm just right in the center of it right now. So in terms of the post-acquisition, right, we recently bought a building, and you've got to, before the deal, right, we have our workflows in terms of getting the deal done. So we've got our lawyers, we're doing the due diligence, we've got our, the deal room, getting through, everything you got to do in your due diligence work streams, and then building the financial models. I mean, this is all pre-work, right? So is this a good deal or not? Building the models with Flex, making sure that, operationally this thing makes sense, and then pulling the trigger, right? We're going to complete, we exchange, we complete, and then after that, we now got to onboard everyone, right? So particularly this is like a WeWork type of building. And now you've got to sift through the nitty-gritty data to contact the people who you want to now onboard as new customers and new clients, a new building. So it's, changing utility bills. This is a building with an operating unit, transfer of going concern. Now you've got to check what accounting system were they using before. Can we get that data? No. Okay, so we've got to recreate it. Filing your option to tax as well. When you're going through the deal, if it's a building and you're buying it with tenants in it, there's something called option to tax. So you got to go down the route of sending HMRC some details to say, this is the deal of the building. We need to opt to tax this building because by default, a lease is not generally VATable, but as a business, we need to opt to tax it so that we can put VAT on it and we can claim our expenses, because obviously, it's a business. It's not just a lease. So you got to do those work streams, and you got to follow up afterwards because sometimes there's questions, and then you got to carry on, getting closure on that, your VAT registrations, because most of the time you buy these in an SPV, so you've got to do a whole bunch of work around that. And then, changing utility bills, getting the new clients on, sometimes opening bank accounts, actually, verifying that the things that you thought you would get are going to be there. So when it comes to the synergy parts, right? Today we're having a meeting basically saying, the way it was being run versus the way we want to run it,
yep,
versus what we expected from the deal, right? So there's, multiple angles of pressures. If you look at an income statement, you got pressure in terms of realizing, is the revenue there? Because you don't know until it's really there, right? So in terms of the income statement and the balance sheet, right? The balance sheet is pretty fixed because you know what you're buying. In terms of the performance of the assets, so the asset management side of things, you got pressures after you make it, because one, what's our asset management strategy? How are we going to make this thing? How are we going to improve the yield? Because you're getting a deal done. What was the strategy of the deal in the first place, and how are you buying it? So were you paying a premium, or were you getting it out of liquidation? What was the original scenario that set you up for this?
Yeah.
And then once you get that, right, how am I going to run the building, or how am I going to run the company? And when you do that, you got to run a flex on your model to see, okay, I've got an operational model that shows me how this building works. So I account for voids, I account for increases in costs, because now I want to do some stuff, right? I want to change the strategy of the building. I want to knock that wall out. I want to add more desks. I want to put a tech system in there. So then what I got to do is I got to flex all these costs. But I did this before I did the deal, and now I'm actually getting quotes whilst we, because getting a quote before and getting someone into the building are two different things. Because someone will always give you a quote when it's just, but when they come, well, it's always different. So the PMI phase is onboarding and then making those decisions for the overall strategy and getting the best yield you can on the asset management side. So it's getting down to the bottom level and making sure that it works and that the money's flowing. When we look at the working capital, once I get in there, right, and now it's a new owner, the relationships are not there. So is the key man still there or not? And most of the time in the deals, when it comes to real estate, you're taking over the building, the key man's no longer there, right? The building manager may be there, but now you got to reopen accounts with everyone. So are you getting the right costs? Are you getting the new price list? Is there a long-time agreement that's getting broken in terms of what you're getting supplied? You get limited information depending on the deal. So if I was buying a mechanic, I'd do the same thing. So what's a working capital, right? This guy, maybe he was getting a good deal because he knew the guy. And now all of a sudden you come in, no longer you're getting the price that he was getting. So your working capital, it costs more to do the same work. And my margin, so I got pressure from the margin perspective. My costs are going out. My supplier doesn't want to give me the same terms. So my working capital cycle is going out. And all of a sudden I need to put more money into the business.
When you're flexing the model, are there a couple of key recurring things like margins, whatever, that are the key things to flex in the model? Like when you're going through the deal, do you have like a last minute checklist? I'm trying to think for viewers, maybe going into IB or just starting in IB, like what are the main things to flex and be like, if I tweak this by 1-2%, how does it affect the discounted cash flow at the end of the model?
It's very industry specific.
Okay.
Because what I would say, if you're going to flex the things that drive the performance of the business, the most, like if you were a mining company, flex the gold price, flex the tolling costs for your ore. If you're going to run a small operation, flex the rental price per hour of your equipment, flex the moisture grades, flex everything. And you can use data tables to do the stuff. So you can do it quite easily. You can just shift F9 every time you want to change something, right? Yeah, I mean, if you were a coffee shop, flex the cost of your beans. What's the biggest cost? Flex your wages, right? And then what you can do is once you're in there and you're running the business, every time you need to make a decision, open up the model, look at it. In the beginning, did you envisage that cost to be there? Yes or no? If you didn't, well, add a line into your model for your income statement, add that expense, and then flex it. Say, all right, if everything else remains equal, right, how much is this going to change?
It's interesting how you look at drivers like from industry to industry, but I guess from and from a non-technical standpoint, feel free if the technical is actually that much of a difference. But going from mining and now most of what you're doing is in real estate now. Well, what's the difference in kind of doing deals of that nature?
I mean, what I flex is both. So for particularly this deal, I just look at all the utilities, voids in terms of, like void periods for our units when they're not rented. I flex both revenue, I flex utilities, I flex staff costs. I kind of look at the different scenarios so you can kind of turn the switches off. So you look at what am I doing right now? And what's going to happen if I add this cost? What's my payback period? And then if I add, because you'll get multiple quotes for things, obviously, because you always get 3 quotes, right? Put all 3 quotes into it. How much payback period? How many months are you sacrificing in terms of getting money back? And then, you can look at, all right, if I get a new tenant, how much do I need to, if I want, if I need $3,000 for this unit, or if I take 2.5, but he's in now, you can look at the difference in the cash flow. So what is the opportunity cost that without, looking, if you're trying to achieve that price, it's best to just kind of plug something, because sometimes you're at a point where, you know, the decision will make the goal at the end of the day. It will affect how you do it. So you just got to, it's something that you'll just kind of play around with, and kind of experience will give you that knowledge.
It sounds like experience is key here. Just reps in terms of building models, flexing them, running through deals.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, if you're a young guy and you're trying to do it, just go online, look at the latest models, you know, or the latest deals that have been done. Go onto Edgar, look at the prospectus, try build a model that matches what they were paying, you know, and look at, you know, what could they possibly be seeing in the deal that made them pay what they paid for it, or accept what they accepted for it. Because I always ask that. I see big deals going down. I think either they were bored and they were looking for something to do, and there was nothing else bigger for them to take out, or what was the rationale behind it. So go look at the prospectus, right? It'll be in there.
I think the other interesting thing to look into will be the operational side, because I know big PE firms have management teams on standby to put in post M&A, but at a smaller family office, does this sort of fall down to you?
It's difficult to have one. All right, if you're working in a family office, right, depending on how established your company is, how much money you got under management, it's difficult to hire people because we don't put ourselves out there. Hey, we're hiring, you know, and you can't, the speed that we do deals, it takes too long to hire people. So yeah, we hire people, but most of the time the team that's in there has to do this work, right? So like I said, this year's been busy because my team, you know, we've got five guys. It's just really, you know, you've got to take that role and you've got to own it. And it's busy, right? And you need to be able to do the pressure that we talked about earlier. You need to be able to manage everything, the multi-family office space. You got to manage 4 bosses. They each have individual needs. Your reporting needs to be customized to what they want. So you got to be able to deal with, in terms of the rejection side of it, you got to be able to deal with putting a lot of work into something and someone saying, no, do it this way. Whilst one says, yeah, I like that. The other one says no. And then you work at it whilst doing your job and getting the deals done, and then making the deals work as well. Because, you know, in a family office space, most of the time, you're not a big team.
In terms of you personally, how have you found going from a sort of fixed progression model in investment bank to a sort of eat what you kill model where you're at now? So the deals you do, the operations of the deals, it's all on you.
It's a good amount of flexibility. And in terms of the whole exposure, I think it's quite fun in a sense that I can, you know, come up with a strategy. If I get buy-in, we can go for it, right? Whereas in the IB sense, you're quite fixed to the industry that your desk is operating on. Yeah. In terms of the client's strategic needs, it's really defined. And in terms of the long-term strategy of changing that, you know, it's not going to go far. I mean, you may go from one metal to the other. In the family office space, you get to use all your skill sets, and it doesn't have to be, you know, you just got to have the right attitude and come to the table with something. You don't have to be the most technical guy. You don't have to be the most personable guy, but if you've got something and you're willing to work and at least you're paying attention, I think it's a good place to be.
But it still requires, I suppose, that IB background. No one's going to just hire you.
Well, you may get hired, but you may not be in the space that we're at.
Yeah. So
you may be, you know, just doing the operational stuff and being told what to do.
Okay, yeah.
And then maybe you can work your way into it. But I mean, I think I'm not the expert on family office, but I've only been in the space for 8 months now. So it's difficult for me to answer that because I have such a broad amount of experience. Depending on the sophistication of their family office, it's quite a role to fill because it's so dynamic as well. So you need to be researched. You need to know what's going on in a lot of different areas of finance as well, to kind of get that position.
Your attitude is like the main thing.
Well, attitude will take you a long way, right? Again, you don't have to have 1,000 different degrees to do it. If you got the right attitude, people will be willing to invest in you and give you the experience you need to get, right?
As long as you got that dog in you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy. What? So now you're in the seat at the family office. Maybe explain 2 different approaches. One for sort of maintaining generational wealth, so looking after your great grandkids with your 100 million, v turning it into the sort of like endless play money, the $1 billion empire. How would you go about sort of 2 strategies for those approaches?
The first strategy, I mean, and this is obviously something that we are discussing now, because I'm leaning to a bit of a blend of that, not just one or the other. I think you can do both. Having a good amount of risk capital and having it in a way that it's following the right macro trends and long-term strategies that will, at least in some way or another, make your risky plays work, right? I mean, we were discussing some macro strategies that you were looking into. Really, that the same idea of that, but doing it in a more lower level where you're getting into direct investments with companies, because you want to formulate something where you've got a bit of everything, and it's just you've got the right capital allocation strategy. But beyond that, when it comes to the family aspect of it, the discussions that I'm proposing is, well, how do we build a family that's not just about how much we can make for the family? How can we build a model that makes the family part of the model?
Interesting.
So when it comes to the kids, right? How do we groom them to be the next, essentially grandparent who's built up the wealth? How do we get the kids to be, from a young age, how do we make them, not just be involved, but be passionately involved in it?
Yeah.
So, we need to train them from a young age to be part of it. And it sounds about like you're grooming kids to be, like a sweat factory. It's not about that. It's how do I upskill them to hand them parts of the portfolio, because they want to be part of it.
Yeah.
So giving them the right training, bringing them into the company early, putting them into meetings just so they can listen to what's going on. Because my dad did that with me, and I think it's given me a real in-depth understanding of not just M&A, but the things that people talk about behind the deal room, when the CEOs sit down with each other and they really talk about the deal. What are we? That's where deals are done.
It's interesting because, to apply, I suppose, my lens from a Norfolk background, farming background, there's a few sayings that sort of go around, and one of them is a generation to make it, generation to keep it, generation to lose it, because you get sort of divorced from the hard work that made it.
And that's the thing. I mean, you've got to have the right mindset, and you've got to get your kids to get to the point where, so what if you have everything set up for you? That actually means you need to work harder for it, because you need to prove to the board who's going to be there that you are the father's son and the father's son's son, right? Because you have it in you somewhere. We just need to pull it out, and we need to make sure that you can shine the way you need to work. You need to groom them and give them the right tools to be a contributing factor to the family trust and the family, the whole structure, because every step of the way you can build on it. And that's just my 2 cents on building it. Yeah. Let's build it for them. Let's build it for them to be involved in it. Yeah.
Well, it sounds better for everyone, like stakeholders included, if you're raised to be a steward of the capital and a steward for the community, as opposed to,
and again, you can have
spraying the money around.
Parts of it where it's risk capital, where they can do the passionate things they want to do, but at the same time, you can groom them to have the right, let's say, training, that they also understand the value of the things that are the 300-year-old businesses which keep going, because those are a big part of society and there's a lot of people that rely on it as well. So from a young age, teaching them the right things to, where does the value, everybody's got a value in the society, right? And you have, as a family office member and descendant of it, you have a value, you have a large part to play in safeguarding a lot of people's livelihoods as well. And I think if you can instill those values in them young, it'll be more beneficial for them in the long run.
We've only got a few minutes left, so I thought we'd do a couple of quick fire questions. Number one, if you could only instill one thing in the future generation of Tuckers, would it be the sporting side or the academic side?
That's a tough question. It's got to be both.
Both.
Come on, that's a cop-out, man.
You gotta choose one. The guy's a monster. The tank.
All right. Yeah, maybe I would get them into tennis.
Shout out.
My old boss played tennis. Yeah. Also semi-pro as well. Tennis is a good networking.
Yeah, a bit like golf.
It's a good club, yeah. Golf is great. It's great, but it's too brutal, man. Because at least with tennis, you can carry on, and it's not, 4 hours on a Sunday, when eventually you with tennis, you can do it in the morning, you can do it in the afternoon, you can do it in between work. So you can build that network and leverage off it, and it's a little bit easier to use. Josh is looking really happy there.
Yeah, Josh is buzzing.
Yeah. It's a great sport as well. Yeah.
All right, this is quick fire questions, guys. Come
on. This light here is actually just Josh's smile.
Yeah. The turkey teeth all over. Next emerging trend in family offices.
I think in terms of the trends in family offices, with the rise, probably the rise of the new not even established wealth, but the new generation of family offices, there'll be more of them, as well as an increasing sophistication of them. And in terms of, driving trends which are maybe not so obvious, just because of the nature of that, they're not as sophisticated as we all think they are, the newer ones. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it moves, but it could then increase cyclical deviations in terms of boom, bang, who knows what happens next.
Number one piece of advice for someone trying to break into investment banking?
Yeah, if you're a young guy and you want to get into it, there's virtual internships. You keep applying from a young age. Apply for every internship until you're 27. It doesn't matter. Just keep going, right? Don't give up. There's so much information out there. You can train yourself up and you can practice, because it doesn't, it's not going to hurt you to be an expert in something. Yeah. And definitely just being a really good financial modeler in any case is going to serve you, not for your own, even for your own family, just your own personal wealth. It's good to have that model. I've done the model, right? I know exactly what's going on. You probably know.
No need to budget when you're a private banker.
I would say
we don't earn enough was the point there, boys. We earn too much. This is not Loro Piana, which is the family office attire. This is Luca Filoni, the budget choice. Final question. Ken, you've done more than most I know at your age in VC. And Tucker, same with you in IB and family office. Apart from you're from a very untraditional route and you're a very traditional route. You said groom from a young age. So what do you think you've missed, or do you think you wish you would have learned coming from an untraditional background that he's learned from a traditional background, and vice versa?
Yeah, I can answer that quite easily. I think I was lucky in terms of getting a chance and being given the information and being taught by the best quickly, right? So being exposed. I think maybe something that what you'd get from a traditional route is not that I wasn't sort of, I would say, grilled, but, it's it would have been a journey to kind of almost make it on your own. But I don't discount the fact that my career path and where I've been was more than brilliant. I've really enjoyed my career. I think that's one thing. It could have just been fun going into a, big corporation, that type of stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably the only thing. Other than that, happy of where I'm at. Yeah.
Ken?
Yeah. I think the biggest part is probably, again, coming back from exposure, right? I think not having seen a lot of things on this side was probably the biggest thing. So every time I got into it, I had to intentionally learn a lot and like really just learn through that fire hose, So I guess that's probably the biggest thing, whether it was from banking when I got into it, fintech when I got into it, or even VC now. It's just like I just have to immerse myself, and it's really just this mindset of like, if I don't do it, no one's gonna do it, and it needs to get done immediately. So
that's actually what I'm enjoying about the family office space now, is because I've got I'm really passionate about finance. So I've studied and read, and for the past, we're now 14 years, I've just immersed myself in corporate finance. And, so when it comes to applying the stuff, when it's a very specific area in family office, you've got to put it all together, and it's quite fun trying to, go through the fire, because man, you got to do it, and it's got to be fast. But I'm happy that I've got a good team, and I've just kind of been lucky, getting the right sort of partner that I'm working with. Yeah,
guys, what a place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
it's been
guys.
amazing. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers have too. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.